Hello, my name is Zachariah with Old Man Gaming and Axiom Games LLC. So usually with these ads I try and do something funny or fun. This time I just want to talk to you straight. There's a little ad video that I'm going to put before a lot of stuff that you're going to see for the next weeks. If you're on the video game side, you don't know this, but if you're on the TTRPG side, you know this, so I just hope you'll bear with me for the next minute or so. But I run Axiom Games LLC. It's just me. It's a tabletop role-playing game company. And just recently, just now, we have published the first ever full setting for our big catch-all RPG system single mod called Ordo Scriptorium. You are seeing wonderful pictures as well as graphic design that we have put into all the work that we put into this. And by we, I mean I did this in partnership with Wizards Respite, which you are also seeing a banner for up there, who helped me publish and produce this. So I just want to talk to you for a second about that. I just want to say, listen, you can go to itch.io, put in the single bar Axiom Games LLC, put in the search bar single mod, put in the search bar, I think, Ordo Scriptorium, and you'll be able to find it. It is a gothic horror game in which you take the role. It happens between 1940s, 1950s. You take the role of a writer who has seen beyond the veil and the super powerful stalkers beyond that hunt the humanity. So you decide to hunt them. And you do that by injecting powerful 18th century author blood into your veins, such as Poe and Bram Stoker and Mary Shelley, which gives you superhuman powers to take on the most dangerous creatures imaginable. So it is a gothic horror game. I hope you enjoy it. I hope I've kind of made you want to pick it up. And just to let everybody know, it is $10, but you also get the single mod rules and single mod character sheet included. It is bundled with it. That is free. It is completely free. It's $10 for this, and then we're including for free the single mod base rules. So all you have to do is pay that $10 and you will get this wonderful booklet that you have seen, some pages flashing next to me, as well as single mod and the character sheet. So I hope you guys, any tabletop role-playing people out there who maybe want to check this out or maybe are looking for a good gothic horror game, please go check this out from Axiom Games LLC and Wizards Respite Publishing. Ordo Scriptorium, available on itch.io. And on to your content.
Hello, and welcome back to the Wizards Respite Sanctorum, the show that dives into all things TTRPG. Today, we have a creator-focused game, or show lined out for you guys. It's all about basically our approach to building our RPG. But as always, I'm not alone. I'm joined here with Zachariah, Old Man Gaming. How are you doing, Zach?
Hello! Yes, we are using our platform for illegitimate gains on this one. We're basically going to plug our own stuff for 40 minutes. No, don't knock it off. We're going to talk about the creative process and stuff, so I'm kind of excited about that. Especially since the thing we're going to be talking about is out today. Go and buy it. But we'll get to that in a second. If you don't mind, Wiz, we actually had a couple of comments on our last podcast. So I'd love to read them if that's all right with you.
I'd love to hear what people have to say.
They are both from Mr. Cyrus Wright. And if you guys want to check out another great creator of RPGs, check out Cyrus Wright on itch.io. He creates literally a game like every week. They're simple, easy to understand, dice simple games. We talked about Touchstone last week, the game that I'm using to play bite-sized games with my daughter. And he responded to us. He actually said, "Awesome episode. I would love to see you guys make some modules and supplements." Then he posted again, From watching this, the game is doing exactly what I wanted it to do. I wanted it to fire up your creativity. And I gotta say, it definitely fires up our creativity. I also apologize because for whatever reason, my email has just decided to consider so many things spam lately. No idea why. And Cyrus Wright, for whatever reason, got lumped into there. So he was actually responding to all my emails, and I just wasn't seeing them. So I did see your emails. Thank you for the okay. If I get time, I really, really want to do a professional wrestling module for Touchstone. I think there's just so much potential there for deliciousness. And I love the game. It definitely fires up creativity. You can see that on my 8-year-old when she comes up some of the craziest things you'll ever see on that show.
And the fact that an 8-year-old can like easily jump into it and still have as much fun as a couple of old-time gamers like you and I think that speaks volumes.
Yeah. This
is a dynamic game with a lot of flexibility and a lot of use. So that's awesome. I love hearing from Cyrus. He's a good guy. I've had some interactions with him online. I love his game. I love everything that I've read on his Itch page. It all looks amazing, and I'm definitely looking into diving into some more content of his. So that's awesome. I'm really glad he reached out and commented for us.
Yeah, he does great work. Great work. Now that we've talked about him, let's go ahead and plug for 40 minutes.
Okay, so aside from just plugging, which we definitely will do.
I know, I'm making myself sound like Wiz is like, stop it!
One of the reasons why I was excited about doing this is I love talking shop. I love talking about not just, what happened in an adventure, but what the mechanics of a game system are all about, really diving into it, getting into the nuts and bolts. And today we're talking about the nuts and bolts of our creation of an RPG. It's an expansion off of the single mod system, which Zach had made. It's the core rule system is single mod. And the expansion is Ordo Scriptorium, a name that always challenges me when I do this show, because Scriptorium and Sanctorum, it breaks my brain. But
I love Latin. What can I say? I love
Latin. Ordo Scriptorium, Order of Scribes. It is a game that focuses on a gothic horror tone. You don a persona of a gothic horror writer, not a persona, but rather powers that are thematically in line with gothic horror writers such as Edgar Allan Poe, Mary Shelley, that sort of thing. That's kind of how, it's not exactly a class system, but for those of you who are familiar with class systems, that's kind of...
It's in the vein. It's in the vein. It's like a super simple class system. The idea behind it being, it takes place in the 1950s, I think we did, 40s, 50s, because we didn't want it to be modern day. We wanted that kind of almost gothic-y horror, but we didn't want to go too far back. And what the Ordo does is you inject the actual blood of previous either people who have had their powers or them themselves, 18th century authors who also fought the monsters that they wrote about. And the idea behind it is that the authors write about the monsters they see to kind of better prepare the humanity that can't quite bring themselves to look beyond the curtain and see the monsters, while also slaying the monsters for the people out there. And super fun. Super fun. You can inject the blood of Bram Stoker, Mary Shelley, Anne Radcliffe, Edgar Allan Poe, H.G. Wells, H.P. Lovecraft. I think I got them all. Did I get them all? Did I miss one? Why do I feel like I missed one? I think I got them all.
Yeah, that's it.
That's opening 6. And in the future we want to add more authors. Honestly, I want to add crazy old time authors like Homer and stuff like that. I think that would be really cool.
Future expansions into this world that we're sort of fleshing out here.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun working on this, especially with Wizard. Wizard is we have quickly come to realize we share brains through the course of working on this process. We were very devoted to it. I do want to say right off the bat before we get into the actual creativity, and yeah, I said it was a plug. We are going to be plugging our own game, but Wizard's right. We're kind of doing this podcast to talk about how we came to the conclusions, how we decided to work on it, what our processes were, I guess, which is a lot of fun. But before I do want to give a big thanks to Wiz, because he just like probably the most supportive partner I think I've ever had in a business ever. So I appreciate all the work he put on this, which was way more work than I thought you were going to put in. So I really appreciated it.
Well, I honestly appreciate. Let's just hug it out, man. We're
in different time zones. That's going to be difficult.
This is my first time creating almost anything with another person, like collaborating really like this with another person, and it's been a great experience. Which is another thing I wanted to talk about just in general, is collaborating on an RPG.
Yeah.
Which might not be a bad place to start, since we're kind of going into this, because this was a big project. This book is 88 pages when we're done with it.
It is without the doubt the biggest project I have ever worked on, and completed.
Yeah,
there was one game that no one will ever see the light of day. That was a fantasy game that was going to be my base system when I first started this company many years ago. That ended up being like 200 pages, and then I was like, oh no, I've created D&D, and then I burned it and walked away.
Actually, I'm actually right there with you. Like, this is the biggest thing that I've ever completed in and of itself as well.
What I like about it, though, is anybody out there being like, oh no, it's big. It's not big for system. The system is the system is all in single mod, and that's a 40-page book. That's a very easy read, if I may not be humble for a second. This book is all just like, it's almost like, I know we're getting kind of off topic, but like one of the things we both really wanted to be in this game when we kind of sat down to kind of discuss doing it was some procedurally generated content. The biggest thing that I wanted was I wanted this, if we were going to do a horror game, I really wanted it to feel very horror-y in the fact that like you're not fighting a ton of monsters in every scene. There is one extremely scary monster. You don't know how to fight it. You don't know any information about it, and all you know is it's out there, and you have to figure out what it is and figure out how to fight it before it finds you. And like that was like the goal of this, and like we both decided that procedural generation was just the best way to do. So there is just tons of pages on what my favorite part of this book is, which is your ability to procedurally generate the stalkers from scratch, the stalkers being the monsters. It is so much fun. Can you create your own? Yes, you can definitely create your own from ground up if you don't want to just randomly roll it. But like, you can also just like, I want the first stalker to just be a random one, and you just randomly roll it up. It is so useful. I actually talked to a guy who I was showing it, and he was like, I will use that game regardless of never even using the system, just to generate monsters, because it not only gives you the powers, but it gives you like what they are, where they're from, when they operate, how they hunt, stuff like that. I was very proud of that work. A lot of that came from Wizard too.
That is like roughly half of this book is this procedural generation system. So as you go through it, and the way that it's lined out is most of those tables that you roll on to procedurally generate have kind of a shorthand in there, so you can look at it, get a sense for it, and then go in and get a deeper dive of the actual aspect you ended up rolling on. So realistically, the half of this book moves really quick. You don't have to read every last word in order to utilize, this huge stalker generation system. It shouldn't be really used that way, or it could be, but mostly just for fun. And it's a really easy read, and as you kind of imagine, if you're familiar with tables on an RPG, they're very quick reads. It's not like they eat up a lot of page space. They're very useful.
There's a lot of work though. It shouldn't be challenging to read, but it was definitely challenging to write for us. I remember the procedural generation, we had to go back to it like, I want to say like double-digit times, because every time we'd get to a point we'd be like, wait, if we did this, it would be more efficient and better. And then it's like, yeah, but we got to rewrite all this. Okay, well, we got to rewrite all this. If I could take us back to the start I love the fact that, like, and this is one of the reasons I like working with Wizard on stuff like this, is Wizard definitely fuels the creative juices in my head. And we, so like when we first did this, so I had released Single Mod. I just released Single Mod. Me and Wizard's relationship was burgeoning with the partnership to the video stuff. And then we were talking about Single Mod and potential settings, and I was talking to him about doing a setting. Not necessarily even with Wizard. I was just like, I need to do a setting. I want it to be original. I don't know what I should be. And Wizard does all this great content on wizardsrespite.com of like deep dive on what people are purchasing on like drive-through games, which I find very cool and useful. And he was like, well, the number one purchased is fantasy, but it's also the number one flooded. So, like, there's just fantasy books everywhere. So then he was like, the second one is sci-fi. And I was like, I don't want to do sci-fi because it's hard to picture, like, it's hard to do it without, like, necessarily great pictures, you know? And then Wizard put forth the horror game. And I was like, I'm not a horror guy. I don't like horror. I do play in a horror game right now, but it's like White Wolf, so and somebody else is game mastering it. Like, it's just not a subject that I'm into. And then he was like, yeah, that's right. Well, let's talk about it.
I like horror.
Yeah, he was like, I love horror. Here's what I like about horror. And then we started to talk about it. And by the time we were done with that 40-minute conversation that just started out a conversation, we had come up with the basis of Ordo, which was people injected 18th century author blood to fight monsters. Yeah. I was like, I don't know how we got from point A of maybe it should be a horror game to point B of it's definitely a horror game. People shooting up Edgar Allan Poe in their veins, and then they going out to kill Cthulhu's. Like it was really kind of fun to just come up with the concept, you know.
Yeah, and you know, I think that was, like I said on collaboration, that was kind of one of the fun parts about collaborating, because you're not really a big horror fan. Mm-mm. I love horror as a genre in my movies, my books, everything. And we were able to kind of find like a common ground, because Gothic horror isn't quite the same as necessarily everybody's means. It's not super like aliens, you know, and that kind of horror. It is, and I think Gothic horror fits really well for RPGs, because there's a sense of dread and tension that you're trying to build with Gothic horror. Yeah. And that's what you're trying to do in this game, is this build of sense of dread and tension as you discover more about this monster. Right. Like, oh crap, what do I have to fight? Right. You know, as opposed to, you know, you can't do necessarily a jump scare in a game session, but you can build that. What am I fighting? Right. What am I going up against now?
Yeah. We actually
just popped it out. It just popped out of our heads.
We actually recorded all the playtest sessions, basically, for podcast purposes, which we are going to be releasing as well. The first one should be going up next week. I am not exactly sure what date yet, but next week.
It's coming.
It's coming this week, yeah. And one of the things that I really liked about it is that the monster itself, we were all very scared of the monster, and we actually kind of beat the monster relatively easily once we get to it. Not to spoil anything for anybody, but we were very scared of it the entire time. It's that lack of knowledge. Like, I think one of the interesting things that I've learned through this process, specifically on the horror thing, is that horror RPGs aren't like horror movies. They're not about the jump scares or the body count, so to speak. They're much more about like the psychological pressure. This game has insanity points. You know, Call of Cthulhu had like a madness system. White Wolf has whether it's like the vampire's humanity being lost, the mage's paradox going up. Like, White Wolf has its own impending doom things. And I think like this one has that in spades. And that was interesting to play with. I had never played with something like that before. In fairness, I think most of the insanity system came from Wizard. But just the idea of the impending doom was kind of cool.
Yeah, and the insanity has real consequences, potentially lasting consequences, depending on how much you let your insanity go away with you. And it also incentivized. I noticed because I ran the play testing as the GM, and
Yeah.
Zach was one of the players, so we were able to
Yay! I
both
actually got
see
to
both.
play single mod.
Yeah, yeah.
It's so nice.
And it was great because I had never GM single mod before, and so I was coming at the core rule system as a new GM, and this is a new game that we're fleshing out. We made some tweaks, so
Yeah,
there's a few
without a
things
doubt.
that we fleshed out. And then Zach was able to come at it being a player, and we were able to see both sides of the game that way. And the I found as the GM, the insanity points gave me a lot of incentive and avenues to help put objects in there that were scary not only to the characters but to my players,
Right.
because the characters would take insanity points, the players would shit their pants.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a lot of fun, that playtesting group. It's been a lot of fun to work on this project too. I don't know. Is this the first like RPG thing that you've actually published other than Poisoner's Handbook?
Yeah. This is the first one that I've published officially, where we're going to be selling. I've done a whole shit ton of homebrew stuff.
Yeah.
But like,
if you are a game master from days of yore, you have done homebrew stuff. There's no way you haven't.
Yeah. I have binders, reams of homebrew that has never even seen like a player on it yet, because I have just written so much of that stuff. But as far as like a single thing, like this is also the biggest thing that I've concluded, ready, for sale. We put a bow on this thing.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe, some of my homebrew stuff I can like sell at some point in time, but like this as a finished product, this is the biggest thing that I've done. It's bigger than the Poisoner's Handbook. And I think it's a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun making this, helping you make this thing, like working with you on this.
Yeah, it was very interesting. It was very interesting to work with you too, because I am a very controlling person when it comes to stuff like this. I tend to like somebody will give me an idea that's not necessarily bad, but I just immediately take it and make it into something that I want it to be. So I don't always work that well with other people, and I feel like we worked very well together on this project, which was nice. I think that for me, I've been creating role-playing games like basically since I understood what a role-playing game was. I immediately was like, I want to do that differently. Because of the controlling aspects, I guess, that I already pointed out. But it would just be one of those things where it was like, okay, well, I don't want to do... I definitely want to play Ninja Turtles. I just don't want to play it with this. Or I want to play Mecha, but I don't want to play it with this system. So I've been writing homebrewed game ideas more... I've played more homebrewed game ideas that I came up with than actual paper RPGs. Like usually it comes from my head, and when I go to Game Master, it usually comes from my head. And I think that also comes from a point of like, I don't want to ever be sitting at a table and not understand a rule that I need to understand as the Game Master. And if I come up with the rules from scratch, I will understand the rules better than anybody else sitting there. And it's not a competition, it's just I don't ever like it when it's like you're sitting there and the player's like, yeah, but if you're reading these rules wrong, you know what I mean? And then it's like, oh, I've read them wrong, and this ruins the entire scene. Whereas I'd much rather be like, well, I made up the rules, so this is what it is, So, and it just for fluidity's sake.
Right.
So so I've been doing this forever. I've never been able to pull off like publishing until single mod. And then, because like I said, the first game I wrote, it had feature creep. Just, I felt like every day I would think of something that I needed to put in the rules. And then at some point I realized that I didn't need to put any of that in the rules. Like I would have like fall damage and collision damage and all of this in the base thing. And there was just a point where I'm like, I didn't need any of this. Like, this isn't what the game's about. This doesn't need to be what the game is about. And And then I realized that I was just bad, and I walked away. And then I started again with single mod once I ended up, at home with Stella. This project was definitely... This project has been crazy. Like, it's just a very creative, interesting project to me. And it's definitely unlike anything I've ever done.
Yeah, this has been really great, and I think listening to you talk about it, one of the things that may have worked really well for us is I've done some home brewing and I've done a little tinkering with my own game systems I wanted to do, but I haven't really been able to 100% come up with a core rule system all by myself that I'm ready to publish by any means. Like I've worked on them, and I have like 5 that I stopped in the middle of. But most of what I've done with the writing of game systems are modules or alterations to games for the reasons that is similar to what you had said. I would oftentimes find in a game a rule or a group of rules that didn't make a lot of sense in actual gameplay. Maybe they had really great concepts, in the writing room, but when I actually brought them to my table, it slowed the game down, or it was too clunky, or the wording was confusing. And so I'd get in there and I would retool that rule system really quickly, and really think about how it would affect gameplay at the table. And so when you and I sat down and started working on this, and we're just shooting the shit and kind of coming up with ideas for our system, like, we'd be basically going back and forth. You give me an idea, or you shoot out an idea for a rule, and I'd be like, okay, what about this? And what about this? What would happen if we did this? And vice versa. And I think we just fit into a really good flow.
Yeah.
Where we're just bouncing ideas, and like, you'd come up with an idea and be like, okay, but what if this happened? And then we'd talk about it for a minute, and we'd find a solution to the problem that maybe I came up with, and then vice versa.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a lot of times where you came to me. I think there is something to being older too. Like as
yeah.
I mean, like, there's one thing I realized, I think more with the re-release of single mod than anything, is that there's no system that's unbreakable. It's just not possible. So, like, if you're trying to make the perfect RPG system, you can't. It doesn't exist. There's none. D&D is breakable. Palladium is breakable. Right. They're all breakable somehow. And, like, there's going to be a moment where you have a player, or like Philbilly will show up and be like, here's how I make a character that cannot be killed. Like, I think that, like, what you have to remember, though, is, like, you have to make sure that the game's fun and that you're proud of the game, and, like, that unbreakable thing, people are going to tell you how it's broken. And even if, like, somebody's like, here's how your game's broken, I could fix that tomorrow, and then it'll be broken again the next day. So you have to, like, you have to just publish your thing, let it sit, and see what happens, And that's something that the same with, like, receiving ideas. I feel like, I don't know, with this one I was much, much better at being like, yes, Wizard, you just write that and tell me what it's supposed to be. And then when you wrote it, you would come back at it with me and I'd be like, okay, this is almost perfect. Here's the small amount of tweaks that I want to make. And then I just make the little tweaks, and then there it is. It's done,
Right.
And I don't know. I'm very proud of this. I think this is different, especially since this felt like we were writing a role-playing game from the ground up. I know that the system was already kind of there because of single mod, because single mod is our base system for this. But, like, everything else around it, it just, like, we built the world, we built the classes, we had extra skills that we added to it, we added extra roles, extra mechanics, we added in, obviously, the stalkers. It felt like we were building an RPG from the ground up,
right.
which I really enjoyed. I just really enjoyed this. I could not be more proud of the first official setting for single mod being Ordo Scriptorium. It's been a great a great experience.
I'm really glad to hear that. I really have loved this experience myself. I really love this system and the game that we've produced on top of the core system. And like I see what you mean about like it really feeling like an RPG, because like single mod is a great core system. And it has all the rules that you will ever need to play a RPG in any setting, any world, anything you want. But it doesn't come with like races or worlds or story. And that's what these expansions like Ordo Scriptorum is providing. We have a storyline built into it, and it feels like a world, and it feels like a place you can go. Or when you're, one of the things that I think every RPGer does is when they're bored, waiting in line, they think about the world that they were just adventuring in.
Yep.
This is a world you can tinker with and play within your imagination.
Well, and I specifically designed single mod to be something where it's like, this is a base system, build what you want on it, like I didn't want single mod to have races or settings or anything like that. I think,
which is great.
Well, and I think
it's a good system mechanically. Yeah. It's mechanics and it's the skeleton that can now be fleshed out a little bit more to fit like horror, fantasy, sci, whatever you want to do with it.
Yeah, I think it's one of the biggest problems in modern day, AAA TTRPGs like D&D and stuff like that is they don't make the system before they make the setting. And like you can't play D&D with anything else. You know what I mean? Like it's very hard to. It's very built towards that kind of fantasy. Blades and spells sort of thing, and it just makes things really tough to do it from there. And I didn't want that. I wanted single mod to be something where it's like, here's single mod, it should work with anything, try it. But Ordo is just, I couldn't be more. I mean, what's your favorite part about Ordo? Let's get into Ordo a little bit.
Okay. Ooh, I mean, that's Jesus, favorite part. Catch me off guard with probably the single hardest question you probably could have asked me. My favorite part. I mean, the stalker system, like, that was kind of our baby. I mean, you and I were really, really invested in making a system to create a monster that would scare players. Players needed to investigate in order to conquer. You cannot just go up to this monster and fight it. You need to understand its strengths and weaknesses, or you will die. And that helps instill the nature of the game and the fear and horror aspect of the game, the dread aspect of the game. And I mean, like that, it works really well to do that. I feel like. Yeah, I mean, realistically, like, if I'm gonna come up with like a favorite part of the game,
it's the stalkers. I love the stalkers. I think they're very detailed to the point where like it might almost be intimidating at first to new players, because we really wanted you to be able to generate every corner of that monster. From just rolls, from scratch to rolls to whatever you wanted to do. We really wanted to be like, here's how this monster is created. And that was a baby. I love the whole idea of the authors. I love the authors and the fact that they have their powers derivative of the blood that they've taken. The other thing is too, in the game, like I said, the big mechanic is the monster. Like, you're trying to figure out information about the monster. As you go about figuring out information about the monster, you use your powers, your author powers. But your author powers, the balancing mechanic for the author powers is darkness points. The darkness points go to the monster. This allows the monster to hunt you, basically. So, like, you have to walk this tightrope, this balancing act of investigating things and figuring out information about the monster. But if you use your powers too much, the monster will come after you. I mean, there are powers with different like slightly different mechanics. I think H.P. Lovecraft is based on becoming mad, and there's a lot of like money, like losing money based mechanics for H.G. Wells. But overall, yeah, you're giving them darkness points while they're coming over you. I love that balancing act. I love the fact that, and you guys will see it in the playtest, that we played 5 games. Well, we had 5 sessions, even though the whole thing counts as one session. We decided that in the beginning that a hunt was going to be a session no matter what, because we only had like an hour and a half to play at a time. So we played. There's going to be 5 episodes. There's only fighting in one episode.
Right.
Like, everything else is just trying to figure out what the monster is, trying to figure out the mysteries of the city, trying to figure out what we're doing here, trying to not kill each other. Like, it's really, really cool about that. I love any game that does that, where the role-playing is just as interesting as the action, you know? And that action is something that you build to, you know?
Absolutely. And on that point, there are a lot of challenges in the other game, in the other sessions, the other like episodes that we had done, leading up to discovering more about the monster and building up your ability, the character's ability to fight the monster, which I felt really is something that single mod does extremely well. Like we've often said that single mod, you've said that single mod was designed so that a sword fight feels like a sword fight. Mm-hmm. It's not just the sword fight. It's a lot of challenges that you run into. In Ordo Scriptorium, it's trying to navigate this dark world feels dangerous. You get a little bit closer to something and you feel like you're getting closer to the edge of the abyss, Yeah. And that system with the skills being, so like prevalent and fast paced and easy to use quickly, really I think hammer down that aspect of keeping the game on point, keeping challenges on point, keeping characters making decisions based off of resources and dice rolls, their skills. And that's what I think makes an RPG so much fun is your character makes decisions. You don't know if they're gonna work out, but you got to do something.
Yeah. I think that's I'm really looking forward to future games of Ordo too, because I think we figured out enough to really fight that first monster with almost no problems. I'm looking forward to the future where we don't have the information we need and we have to take on the monster anyway because it's come to that point, Right. And I think that that's something that Ordo is going to really shine at in the game. And again, I want to say out there, anybody out there who just needs something to generate like big scary monsters, this is also potentially the book for you. Like, I think that the monster generation tables we're both very proud of that.
Yeah. That was real fun. Really great aspect of the game, and I could see that being useful just about in any game, even setting, even to a certain degree. Let's see. Well, I
mean, I don't know what else you want to talk about about it. I think we've covered it.
I think so too. I think the creative process, I think we've really hammered down on our experiences here. I guess one last thing, was there anything like during this whole process that you really enjoyed just, as a content creator, and anything that like as a content creator, as writing this, you're kind of hitting your head against the wall a couple of times?
Well, I definitely enjoyed how well this flowed out of my hands. When I write an RPG, and I know I shouldn't write it this way. Most people tell me I should write it sectionally, but usually when I write an RPG, I have to start at the beginning and end at the end. That's usually how I roll. The only time I kind of deviate from that is when like if I'm doing like special powers or stuff like that, I'll make a note on my phone, so that whenever the inspiration for that hits me, I just add it in, you know? But overall, I just write it from start to finish, and sometimes that makes things really hard. To this day, I have published two role-playing games. One was Upper Hand, a wrestling RPG that you can get on drive-through games. It didn't work out quite the way I wanted it to. That one was extremely hard to write because I didn't know where to like start and end. And single mod, same thing. There's moments where you're like, okay, do I do combat next? Do I do skill rolls next? Like, do I bungle that into the same thing? It's kind of like, how do you write it from start to finish? Like, for whatever reasons, my brain makes me write a role-playing game like it's a storybook. This just flowed like that. Like, it flowed really easily. Like, I knew exactly, like, the minute we were done talking about it, I knew the formatting of the pages that I wanted. I knew I was going to go introduction, storyline-based elements, character creation. You know what I mean? Like, it just flowed right off the thing. And that was nice. As far as, like, banging my head against the wall, I'm going to actually say the monster stuff, because there was so many times where we would run into things where it's like, we need this system here. How do we do this without doing this? Like, especially some of the powers and some of the other things. Because there's, like, give you an example. One of the things that drove me nuts for a while until I just kind of did, because some of the monster stuff when you're generating breaks its own rules. And that was really the idea that I had to wrap my head around, because I like things to be very segmented. Like, here is the stats. Here's how you get them. Here is the information about it. Here's how you get that. Here's the powers, and here's how you get that. But like a transactional stalker, like a devil, like that's like making deals. How the fuck do you do that? Because the way they hunt, how they hunt, and their powers are all in the same little transactional like thing. Plus, you can't just have somebody doing transactional powers who's not transactional. So things got like that one was one that I was like, I want this system to cover every stalker that I can think of. But how do I possibly put that in? But that's a huge stalker. How many like Rumpelstiltskin, the devil, like those are pretty big stalkers when it comes to it. So like gotta have that in there. And what I ended up doing was I was like, I'm gonna break my own rules. If they roll transactional in the style of how they hunt, there's gonna be a special rule perk right there under it, and that's how you use them. But that kind of stuff was very hard to do for me, and I think it's because I have I like a certain level of symmetry in how my game works, and I want it to be sections like building blocks that I, like almost like a kid's building blocks, like I'm putting those building blocks together to make a tower, That's how the game is in my head. Like, here's the block of character creation, and inside that we're going to make a couple of blocks of stats, and then skills, and then perks. Then down here we've got some blocks for the skill roll, then we've got the blocks of combat on top of that. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You can't do that with the stalkers. That's one of the coolest things about this book and writing it, is the book itself was as horrifying as the subject matter for me, because I was like, I have to break my own rules. I cannot build this in any other way than pure, unadulterated fucking chaos. So there's rules. There's certain places where there's rules for something, and you're like, and then the same stuff doesn't have rules on everything. You know what I mean? So like the transactionals one, there's other stuff like that where it's like, this isn't a stalker perk. It's just something they get to do because you rolled this, And like that kind of stuff was really hard for my brain to do. Really hard. Like, it was mental gymnastics. It was like trying to like, it was much less building with blocks and much more like trying to keep a bunch of balloons from blowing away and tied together. Like, there's no design. They're just bumbling around, but you've got to put them together. Like, I would say that's my most frustrating.
I can see why that was frustrating. It did end up working in the end though, through a lot of work, because all of those exceptions were unique enough. We were able to isolate them and make them balanced. And it really adds a lot of variety to the monsters that you can get out of it.
Oh yeah, you can get some real fucking weird shit.
Yeah, and weird shit, and it works mathematically. You know, it works. It keeps the game like making sense. You know, as you're building out this creature, and that was one of the things that I really enjoyed about this system with you, and looking through all of these things was building out like something that would function in the gameplay, and you could rely on, but also would add huge variety, so the players were always guessing and never knowing what they're going to run into next.
It gave me, weirdly, writing this gave me a better understanding of why White Wolf is written so terribly. And like, I still think it's written terribly. It could be written better, but there is something about like, you're talking about things that are like fear is unknown. So like you want it to be unknown, and something to be unknown means it has no checked power, which means that like it's a real in the mouth of madness moment when you as a creator of a role-playing game have to sit down and go, I need to quantify the unknown so that when people roll dice they might be able to kill it. Like that, that's like, okay, well, I'm just going to put a straitjacket on you right now and take you somewhere, because just that concept's insane. And like, this was that for me. It was very much like, I kind of could see the White Wolf, like, I was like, they could still be written better. But at the same time, like, I was like, okay, the lack of understanding, the fact that you can take it from so many different directions is its own way of generating horror. You know, its own way of making you like horrified, because you're never really sure that you're reading the rules right when it comes to a White Wolf game. With this, the rules, you never know where you're going to get. You never know what you're going to get when you roll. Like, they're all over the place. But I am very proud that we could create monsters like, it's not even really a spoiler because I don't know for 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure in the second season we're fighting a car that's a stalker. For Ordo, that is possible. That's possible in this game very easily. The other thing that I really like about it too is we left it open enough for players to take the roles and generate the things in their head, much like Last Tea Shop does. There's nothing like specific. I mean, there are specifics. But, like, there's nothing like you could roll and be like, oh, I get a mad science thing. And then you roll some powers and you roll some hunting things. And then once that starts to get together, your brain, as a person, kind of goes, oh, well, maybe this is a Frankenstein, you know, or something like a Frankenstein's monster. I know! As a scientist, I know! Jesus. I could hear everybody getting mad out there. I know Frankenstein was the guy and the monster. I know. I was just saying, like, that kind of thing. Like that's what I like about this system, is it presents this, like here's the web. No, it's like a colored, it's like a dots. It's like, here's the dots. Now draw the lines together yourself. And then that'll be the picture. And I really like that. I really like that about this system.
Yeah, couldn't have said it better myself. That is the real fun of this system, is never running into the same stalker twice,
right?
And never really having to hit your head against the wall as a player, as a game master, to create a stalker, because it should just be inspiring you to you have the math, you have the systems, you have the powers. What the hell is this thing? Right. The thing that hit my head against the wall. And Zach, you kind of saved my ass on this one.
Oh, okay.
We started the madness points, and I started the system, and I got to a point where there was certain consequences that would happen when you got too many madness points, and those consequences, they were getting to me as I was writing them out. I was having a very Lovecraftian moment myself, where I was writing out these things, and they were kind of driving me mad as a writer. And like, you came in and helped me finish out a lot of those consequences.
Oh, I didn't realize it was life-saving as much as I was there.
It was something else. And you know, when you play the game, you're only going to be encountering potentially a fraction of the consequences that you could. That was kind of the point of these tables. So you didn't have to read every single consequence. You rolled on the table and you figure out what it was that you ended up with. But when you're writing them out, I had to think deeply about this madness. And yeah, that was challenging after a while.
I get it. Coming up with lists can sometimes be hard too, and just having somebody else look at what you have and being able to be like, okay, well, this is what we need to add to this, you know.
Yeah,
can be really helpful. I think that happened a lot with the Stalkers, because you really wanted, because I was trying, we like to use D20s. It's a D20 system, so everything's a D20 because I'm an asshole, so I've got to attach everything to a fucking D20. And we would get to this point where I'm like, I don't have any more hunt times. I don't know how to do this. And then you were like, what about the tides? I was like, holy shit, that's a great idea. I never would have thought about the tide, like being like the timing of the hunting of the stalker. I never would have thought of that. So there's definitely a lot of moments like that when we were doing this, which I think
definitely needed two brains.
Yeah. Definitely needed two brains on this. And I think it got way better in general, like the whole thing.
Yeah, 100% agree. Well, I think we've covered the creative process for Ordo Scriptorum, how we went about it, how it felt doing a RPG together like this, together. Are you feeling pretty good with this one?
I'm feeling really good with this one. I'm feeling really good with the game. I'm feeling really good with the podcast. If you guys have more questions about our creative process, feel free to ask. We don't mind fielding questions.
Yeah. Obviously, we love talking about RPGs. That's, you know, what this whole thing is about. And we love building these things, and we love to chat about what we built and ideas that you guys have to build. So, you know, also you can reach us out on our various platforms to even just, you know, chat about various ideas of RPGs in general. We love to hear about everybody's perspective. But I think we've come to the natural conclusion of this episode. I think everybody would really enjoy, if you enjoy RPGs, I think you'd really enjoy taking a look at this one, Ordo Scriptorum. Also check out the new episodes of our playtesting that we've done. Before we close it out, Zach, is there anything else that you want to shout out there?
Well, I'm definitely going to shout out this game in its full form. You can find it on itch. Search Ordo Scriptorium. It should be up today. It is also bundled with the original single mod rules and the single mod character sheet, so you don't have to go back and buy single mod again. You could just buy the Ordo Scriptorium bundle. You have the game. We have priced it at a modest $10, so enjoy there. And I do believe you should be able to get it on Wizards Respite as well, if not now, soon. So you could get it in either place. And again, single mod will be completely bundled in, and you could get it there. Other than that, I don't have anything to plug other than that. I mean, I have tons of stuff to plug, but right now,
I think this was a good plug for today, talking about this whole system and what we tried to do here. And hopefully everybody got a little bit of an insight out of it when it comes to writing your own games or just being in love with the hobby itself. So for everybody out there, you know, I really hope you enjoy this game. I hope you enjoy whatever game you guys are playing now. And until next time, you know, guys, keep rolling them dice.